it's Tara Boothby from Sojourn Psychology, and I wanted to take a few moments of your time to talk more about our trauma reaction and how we're all doing these days. Recently, one of my colleagues, Alexandros Patakos, who was on our blog in June and spoke about his books, The Opal Way and Meanology, recently he posted something great in his social media feed, and that was an article by this fellow by the name of Jonathan L. Zecher. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And he is an instructor professor down in Australia. Now, Jonathan writes about this word Acidia. Acidia is a really interesting word, kind of forgotten old word of Greek origin. And Acidia can be defined as mental and spiritual slothfulness, or mental and or spiritual apathy. Jonathan describes it as a mind seized by emotion. Now maybe your ears are perking up a little bit here. This seems very relevant to me in what we're enduring with 2020. As we've endured crisis and trauma, we've talked about how the adrenaline in our brain goes up and it gets stuck up here, has a hard time coming back down, so we're in this thwarted emotion, a mind seized by emotion. When we're up here in adrenaline, it's harder to make decisions, to manage feelings, to manage life events. That's true. That's some of what we know with current science of psychology. And this acedia, or that experience of thwarted adrenaline, of thwarted emotion, is much more than grief. Hopefully you've heard people speak about grief and the stages of grief during all of that we're enduring, but we do know that it's much more than grief. The current psychological term would be complicated grief, actually. We are experiencing many losses and grief simultaneously. The loss of what was prior to lockdown, the loss of our freedom due to lockdown, the loss of relationships, the loss of finances or financial stability, the loss of trust in leadership over us, the fear and anticipation of what is coming, the fear of the unknown, and the lack of timeline, etc., etc., etc. There is a lot of loss here. So it is a complicated grief. It's much more than grief. It is this acedia thing. So historically, the word acedia arose from the spatial and social constrictions of the solitary monk lifestyle. So as monks were committing themselves to this experience of isolation so that they could be committed to a spiritual cause, to their theology, in that social and spatial constrictions, they could report listlessness, undirected anxiety, and inability to concentrate. Now, doesn't that sound familiar right now? Listlessness, undirected anxiety, and difficulty concentrating. Those are common things that were reported right now. I'd add exhaustion onto that one just because, hey, that fits for me. Now, in the 2020 response to COVID, you know, it has evoked or brought upon us this monk-style life, that we are experiencing conditions similar to what monks endured in their experience. And that's why we can draw this parallel, noticing this acedia thing, that social media and the negativity that we can be exposed to through social media, through news, through people conflicts, and just debating or trying to get a handle on all the things we have no idea about. And then this social distancing. Those are the pieces that can cause this tax on our brain, that we have this emotional and spiritual slothfulness or apathy, a melancholy experience. So the complex emotion by enforced isolation and the constant bad and shifting news, all of this is compounding our experience, and it's just really hard. This is our complicated grief experience, and we're tired. We're tired emotionally and spiritually. We're having a hard time. And part of what is really important is to just notice this. And somebody great says this, but I can't remember who to give credit to. The idea that we have to name it to tame it. So in order to gain access to and create a conversation between ourselves and our emotions, we want to name them. Having this language, understanding Acedia or melancholy is inviting in an opportunity for us to more clearly label those uncomfortable feelings. How am I doing just right now? Is it hard to do things that weren't hard previously? I mean, I think it's common in North American culture for us to have some sort of self-care practice. We don't necessarily have an easy time defining our spiritual orientation. And for myself, I'm a practicing Christian. I really enjoy understanding Christian history. That's why I like this word Acidia, and I like learning about monks because that's sort of my roots. But we're in a world that's struggling to have spiritual influence, that doesn't have Christian influence or monk influence. That's why we didn't quite know how to notice this. And maybe for you, when you consider how you take care of yourself, it's going to make more sense to see that really emotionally and spiritually, it's okay to feel slothful right now. Notice it, name it, try to access into it, and hopefully you'll be able to have someone come alongside of you so that you can speak to them about it. In closing, Jonathan has one more beautiful way of just speaking about Acedia, and he says, we need to remove the sense that this thing I feel is mine alone. Now, the burden of thwarted pain and difficult emotion is that if we do not acknowledge it and it is left unchecked, it becomes off the hook inside of us, and it just runs around and creates a lot of turmoil. We need to be noticing our feelings and speaking about our feelings. Feeling alone in our pain is very unhealthy and risky business. So please do notice your own pain. Talk to yourself about your Acedia, your melancholy, and please do try to reach out to someone that you respect and admire, whether that's a friend or family member. And if you do need support, reach out to your mental health provider. This is a hard time, and we shouldn't be trying to go it alone. So let's be there with each other through this. Thank you guys. Like I said, I'll link some of the info in the description below. Take care.